Coming up, today's story is really one of the saddest in rock history. A band that had as much potential as any who ever recorded a song, truly. They were like a powerful comet of rock blazing so fast and bright they just quickly imploded. They had an incredible 14 massive hits in a little over 2 years. I mean, they were on a Beatles-like trajectory. In fact, they outdid the Beatles in terms of hits before the demise of the Fab Four, right before that. These guys could compete with anyone, with a lead singer with a raspy voice and a sound that redefined rock. But sibling rivalry, arguments within the band, and the battle for creative control decimated this group. Today's massive hit tells the story best. A classic of the rock canon that also proved prophetic, predicting the collapse of this band. But only the lead singer knew what it meant. Then some of the fans caught on. But what a waste. Had the band held on, they may have been the biggest rock band in U.S. history, truly. Up next is one of the great what-ifs of rock and roll, and a story behind a classic song. I'm Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you remember the B-sides to all your favorite singles, even today, you're going to dig this channel of deep, deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the red button, click the bell so you always know when our new interviews are coming out. So it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. This is the show that takes an in-depth look into songs that transcend genre, decade, and fads. Songs that are monumental touchstones in our culture and within our society. Just to give you a taste of what this show is all about, previous episodes we've covered Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin, Sundown by Gordon Lightfoot, and Hey Jude by the Beatles.
And the cat's in the cradle and a silver spoon. Sundown, you better take care.
Hey Jude, don't make it bad.
All of these phenomenal songs. But today, we're giving you the story behind what is effectively the swan song for one of the biggest bands from the late 60s and early 70s. Telling you, these guys were a force to be reckoned with. None other than Creedence Clearwater Revival, CCR, and their unforgettable hit, Have You Ever Seen the Rain?
Have you ever seen the rain?
During Creedence Clearwater Revival's 1968 and 1972 run, they notched 14 top 40 singles in the US and released 7 albums, all of which would ultimately certify gold or platinum. In 1969 alone, CCR dropped 3 legendary records, Bayou Country, Green River, and Willie and the Poor Boys. A record pace that no one has really equaled since. Just amazing.
On the bayou, there's a bad moon on the right. It ain't me, I ain't no fortune in wrong.
For those of you who may not be familiar, Creedence Clearwater Revival was comprised of the great John Fogerty on lead guitar and lead vocals. There was his brother Tom Fogerty on rhythm guitar and backing vocals, Stu Cook on bass, and Doug Clifford on drums. But as we'll see later in today's episode, it definitely wouldn't stay that way. However, let's get things rolling by going back to April of 1970. Paul McCartney had just announced he was leaving the Beatles, which would in turn affect CCR in a big way. The Beatles' shadow had loomed large over their shoulders throughout their career, as it had over everyone's career. But now with the breakup of the world's biggest band, who was going to fill that void? For a hot minute, Creedence Clearwater Revival, CCR, they thought it could be them. So did everybody else. They'd already kicked out 3 top 10 albums. They were racking up top 10 hits all over. And with the landmark success of Cosmo's Factory released just months later, you really couldn't blame them for feeling that way. Cosmo's Factory hit the shelves in July 1970, and it would be CCR's commercial peak, featuring a stockpile of classic CCR hits. Who Will Stop the Rain? There was Up Around the Bend, Run Through the Jungle, Looking Out My Back Door, I Heard Her Through the Grapevine, just to name a few.
Looking out my back door. Ooh, I made it to the
Cosmo's Factory would go on to sell over 4 million copies in the US, and that's back in the day when records didn't sell by the tens of millions. But you know what? There was discontent within the band over how they were perceived by the rock press. They bristled at the suggestion that they were merely a top 40 act. In response to this, Fogerty would say, "I want John, Tom, Stu, and Doug to roll off people's tongues like John, Paul, George, and Ringo." Now, as CCR returned to Wally Heider's San Francisco studio in 1970 to record their 6th studio album, which was to be called Pendulum, John Fogerty knew that the clock was ticking. Not only to fill the post-Beatles vacuum, but also because there was turmoil brewing within the band, particularly between himself and his brother Tom. By everyone's account except for John, the problem came down to the iron grip that the frontman held over the band. He wrote, he sang, and he arranged and produced practically all the songs on his own, often staying in studio after the others left to clean things up and add overdubs. As a result, the rest of the group felt more like session players than bandmates. Resentment was breeding for sure. A couple days before the sessions for the new album started, Tom, Doug, and Stu, they voiced their frustrations in a band meeting. They told John that they wanted a bigger role. Now, reluctantly, Fogerty, he agreed, but he had a caveat. Just one more album, then things would change. Now, in the meantime, John doubled down, asserting even more control over Pendulum. He wrote every song, took all the leads, and most of the solos. You couldn't really blame him. The album, it would take a month to finish, which by Creedence standards, that was nearly an eternity. Pendulum set to ship 1 million copies on the day of its release. Creedence invited rock journalists from across the country to Berkeley for a listening party. Several hundred writers were flown in and wined and dined. They all watched a Creedence TV special and attended a short performance by the band. But the schmoozing, it didn't have the desired effect. Most of the resulting articles largely mocked the group, if you can imagine that. I mean, Pendulum was supposed to be a key step in CCR's hip creative evolution. But looking back, they all agreed it was the beginning of the end. Pendulum was released in December of 1970. And this time, singles were scarce. The double A side of Have You Ever Seen the Rain and Hey Tonight dropped in early 1971, about a month after Pendulum reached the shelves.
I won't know. Have you ever seen tonight?
But that wasn't the only thing the band dropped. Tom, he'd had enough. He announced he was quitting the band in early 1971. At the time, Tom claimed he was leaving to spend more time with his family, but with the release of not one, but 2 solo albums the following year, it was clear that creative differences also played into his decision.
Circle from the sky.
Discrepancies between band member statements have really muddied the waters here. The truth about what really happened, it's hard to discern. John Fogerty, for his part, said he was stunned. I'd given the guys everything that they said that they wanted. And now Tom, he just quit. We never talked about it directly. Tom was in a bad mood. He was real tense about it. Citing a quote Tom made in Rolling Stone that same year, John chalked his brother's departure up to jealousy. I guess Tom had said, as John's older brother, he should have been leading the band, instead of the guy just standing there playing rhythm guitar. That, of course, didn't sit well with John. I mean, Tom, for his part, said he felt the pressure of being squeezed. Creedence was together for 9 years before they made it big. And 60% of that time, he was actually the lead singer. So after we were into our 6th platinum album, I just thought maybe I could do a little singing, is what he would say. But John, he was not going to change things, so I split. Tom's decision to leave would have major repercussions on CCR's next album, Mardi Gras, and really the future of the band. I'll get to that in just a second, though. For now, let's get into Have You Ever Seen the Rain? A Creedence Clearwater Revival classic.
There's a calm before the storm. I know.
Have You Ever Seen the Rain directly addressed the issues that were happening in the band? Fogerty has confirmed that this song is about the strained relationship, that was developing between him and Tom, and Doug and Stu as well. It was a prophetic pronouncement that the band was definitely breaking up. And John said that the rest of the band, they had no idea at the time. Someone told me long ago, there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time. I mean, those are the lyrics.
It's been coming for some time.
Actually, Have You Ever Seen the Rain? It was one of the few songs that CCR recorded unrehearsed. According to Stu, 2 songs, Pagan Baby and Have You Ever Seen the Rain, were written and rehearsed on the spot during the course of one of the sessions. So maybe the other guys just didn't have enough time to parse it out and know what it was really about.
When it's over, so let's say it'll rain.
But John, he knew full well what he'd written. He said, Have You Ever Seen the Rain is really about the impending breakup of CCR. The imagery is, you can have a bright, beautiful, sunny day, and it can be raining at the same time. The band was breaking up. It'll be sunny everywhere in the world, and yet there's a cloud somewhere dropping rain on you, and you're getting wet. Those were his words.
Ain't a sunny day, I know.
Looking at all of the band's success, everything should have been blue skies. They should have been happy. I mean, Cosmos Factory was a highly successful album. It left a permanent mark on music history, all their music. There was just so much to celebrate, and yet all the band could talk about was the negative stuff. And in the process, they created this huge, dark rain cloud. John referred to the situation as snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Great way to put it. He felt like he was watching the band disintegrate right before his very eyes. At the time CCR recorded the song, there was a guy hanging around the studio named John Hollowell. He was actually writing a book about the band called Inside Creedence. Now, John said the book was far from great, but because he was around so much, Hollowell could see the discontent within the band right then and there. And when he heard them play Have You Ever Seen the Rain, he actually cried. He knew exactly what the song meant because he was right there. He knew that CCR, they were effectively done, or would be soon. Looking at the frontman for confirmation, Hollowell asked John if it was true. What was there to say? CCR's days were numbered. And before the band even knew it, it was all right there in the song. I mean, it's just amazing. Such truth in their music. There always was.
Shining down like water.
Have You Ever Seen the Rain was the swan song single of CCR's career as a quartet. Went to number 8 on the Hot 100 and number 3 on the Cashbox chart. Internationally, it reached number 36 in the UK and number 14 in Japan. But in a number of other countries, it was a top 10 smash. It was number 10 in Argentina, number 9 in the Netherlands, number 8 in Brazil and Sweden, number 6 in Belgium, Austria, and Australia, number 5 in Singapore, number 4 in New Zealand and Norway, and number 1 in Malaysia, Canada, and South Africa. It took the world by storm.
Coming down the day.
In terms of pop culture, Have You Ever Seen the Rain has appeared in several movies and TV shows, as you can imagine, particularly in the new millennium. The list includes The Longest Yard, Stargate, SG-1, Evan Almighty, The Wire, Dexter, Cold Case, Nurse Jackie, Parenthood, Superstore, Doogie Howser MD, Moonshine, and Big Sky. Have You Ever Seen the Rain has also been covered by quite a few artists. There's R.E.M., Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, The Fray, there's Natalie Merchant, Def Leppard, Eagles, Billy Joel, Spin Doctors, The Lumineers, Willie Nelson,
You ever seen the rain?
Rod Stewart, Bon Jovi,
Have you ever seen the rain?
Corey Taylor, Keith Urban, Crowded House, and Blind Melon, and Bonnie Tyler.
Have you ever seen the rain?
In 2013, John Fogerty teamed up with one of his musical heroes, Alan Jackson, to cover the song as well. This collaboration was a part of Fogerty's 9th studio album, Wrote a Song for Everyone.
Have you ever seen the rain?
The record is comprised of Creedence classics and deep tracks, John's solo material. There's also some new songs as well. It also featured a host of guest performers, from Bob Seger to the Foo Fighters to Brad Paisley. Fogerty said about it, "One day I got word from my record company, Alan Jackson has heard about your project and he wants to record a song with you. I was floored. Of all the times in my life, this was one that kind of took me aback. I didn't dare hope that this could ever happen. It really meant a lot to me."
I wanna know. Have you
And then in 2018, for CCR's 50th anniversary, and coinciding with the release of their 7 LP box set, the band released a music video for Have You Ever Seen the Rain? Starred actors Jack Quaid, Sasha Frolova, and Aaron Moriarty. This video is a fresh take on an old classic, shot in Montana by director Lawrence Jacobs. He described it as a coming-of-age story. Definitely worth checking out. We'll link to it below. Okay, so let's get back to the aftermath of Tom Fogerty's departure. Things didn't get any easier. Tensions were high, and communication had broken down between John, Stu, and Doug. At the time, CCR explained that the changes that were happening within the band were a part of its creative evolution. However, Cook and Clifford later told a completely different story. Cook and Clifford maintained that they never had a problem with Fogerty being the alpha. Said Stu about it, "We couldn't do anything without John anyhow. We never thought that we could. John was the leader. John wrote the great tunes. John sang the great tunes. But at the same time, they also wanted to grow as singers and songwriters, and so they pushed to be more involved." Think back to the band meeting before Pendulum and John's promise to let them be more involved. Well, it was time to make good on it, but that didn't mean that John had to necessarily like it. As Stu and Doug tell the story, John told them that they'd be in charge of writing a third of the album without him. He said, "You're singing your own songs. I'm not singing on your stuff because my voice is a unique instrument." That's what they said, he said. In Stu's mind, it was a double cross. That wasn't what they wanted, and the fans wouldn't want it either. It was really commercial suicide. They were just looking to contribute a little bit more, maybe write a tune or two, with John's help. Neither thought that they could write and perform on the same level as John, is what they would say. But when they tried to push back saying they wanted to do the album all together, John simply said, "You do it that way, or I leave now." Not wanting to break up the band, Doug and Stu acquiesced to John's demands. At least that's how they say it happened. Again, there's all these different conflicting stories. When it came time to cut the record, though, John would play only rhythm guitar on their songs, and then he left the studio. The remaining 2/3 of CCR had to learn on the fly how to play lead guitar, slide guitar, and piano for their own songs. John's version of the group's demise differs sharply from Cook and Clifford's accounts. Fogerty attributed the decline in quality on Pendulum and Mardi Gras to the other band members just demanding creative involvement. Back in 1971 and 1972, John tried to put a positive spin on the changes as part of the band's growth process. But in subsequent years, he's presented a harsher version of the story, calling into question both the character and musical abilities of his former bandmates. If you're interested in hearing more of John's side of the story, check out our video on his 1980s hit, The Old Man Down the Road. Really crazy story there. I'll link to it.
The old man is down the road.
As for Creedence Clearwater Revival's final album, Mardi Gras, that was released in May of '72, I believe. It was the group's only record to feature compositions and singing by anyone other than John. 4 tracks are credited to Fogerty as a singer, and Stu and Doug have 3 apiece. Sadly, the album was trashed by critics, and it was met with near unanimous disapproval. Rolling Stone even called it the worst album ever made by a major rock band. But with that comment, you kind of have to consider the source. There's also a major commercial disappointment, though, especially by the band's now high standards. Going gold in the US and nothing more, it did reach number 12 on the Billboard 200, but that was a noticeable drop-off from their previous 5 albums, which averaged a 3 spot on the same chart. Even so, CCR managed to keep their single success rolling. Someday Never Comes reached number 25 on the Hot 100. And Sweet Hitchhiker climbed to number 6 and also number 5 on the Cashbox chart. Incidentally, both were written and sung by John Fogerty. But in sum total, Mardi Gras was underwhelming. And it was the last straw. Tension within the band hit its breaking point, and on October 16th, 1972, CCR spokesman Jake Rohrer announced that the band was effectively done. He said, "This is not a happy day. Ever since Tom split, the rumors persisted that Creedence had split up. We just quit pushing after 70. All through 69 and 70, we were building and pushing awfully hard with the recording, the tours. At the end of 70, we were the biggest group in the world without question. I think that the mighty Led Zeppelin would disagree with that last statement maybe, but depending on how you measure it, it is kind of true. No band since the Beatles had so many hit songs that absolutely dominated radio. I mean, had they have kept it together, who knows what could have happened? Such a waste of talent. And after that, we lost John Fogerty's voice for quite a while due to legal conflicts. Again, back to our old story. It'd be many years until his comeback in '85 with Centerfield. Again, what a waste. I mean, for a while, it was all blue skies for Creedence Clearwater Revival. They had a bright and sunny day, but now there were rain clouds in the sky. Kind of works with the song.
Have you ever seen the rain?
It was a disheartening end to one of the era's most successful acts. It was all predicted between the lines, the lyrics of Have You Ever Seen the Rain?
Coming down sunny day.
This song is still such a force. It reminds me of my dad's 8-track stereo that he'd play while we worked out in his shop. It was a soundtrack of my childhood. A song so poignant, so overwhelming, it makes you ache from your heart to your bones. Tell you, they just don't make them like they used to. Thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Creedence Clearwater Revival and this incredible new standard. Have you ever seen the rain? Have you ever seen the rain? What a great song. What are your memories of the song? I mean, art imitating life. It's just incredible. Let us know in the comments below about CCR, what your thoughts are. What other songs should we cover on here? Such a dynamic story. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have it as part of our daily content. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth.